Hello class, we continue our study of Greece. Where exactly is Greece? Greece is a country in Europe. It's located on the northern and eastern hemisphere. Greece is a peninsula and the capital city is Athens. The terrain in Greece is very different than the terrain in ancient Mesopotamia and Egypt. In Greece, you find lots of mountains, valleys, and coastal areas. Mountains and hills cover nearly 3/4 of Greece, and because it does, it makes farming very, very difficult. Western Greece is the most mountainous, and therefore the travel by land is very, very difficult. The land is not very fertile either, and the farmers herd goats and sheep as opposed to trying to grow crops. Eastern Greece has much more suitable land for farming. Some of the farmlands are on the peninsula of Attica. Attica has excellent harbors, and this is a great place for ships to come in and out so they will be able to trade. In Attica, you can find several rivers, but unlike the rivers in Egypt or Mesopotamia, these rivers dry up in the summer. So because only about 20% of this land was suitable for farming, the Greeks had to look beyond land in order to survive, and that's why there were so many conquests. Well, let's talk about the climate in Greece. The climate is considered Mediterranean, which means they have hot, dry summers, and they have very, very wet and warm winters. And this is difficult for farming because the one or the few rivers that they have, as I said, they do dry up. It's called Mediterranean climate, of course, because it comes based on the cool air that comes from the Mediterranean Sea. All right, let's look at Greek city-states. Now, you should remember, hopefully, that a Greek city-state is an area that has its own independent form of government. There's no central government there. And the ancient Greeks became so overcrowded on the Greek mainland that they spread out and they formed different colonies. And these colonies eventually became city-states. This is a map of the Aegean Sea, which shows Sparta and Athens and where they were located. And as you can see, Spartans and Athens are not that far apart, but they, as a result of the river and wanting water, got into a very, very big battle. Let's talk about why they had city-states. Mainly there were three reasons. Because the territories were separated so much by mountains and valleys, it was difficult to travel and to see and to form relationships with those on the other side of the mountain. So everyone kind of represented their own community, made their own decisions, and did their own thing. The third and last reason is because they became economically independent, which means they determined what was best for that particular area to survive. Now, when you're talking about city-states, they were all over, and they're a little bit different than the city-states we talked about in Egypt, so listen carefully. They were similar, yet they were different. Let's talk about that. Athens, capital of Greece, is smaller, so you'll have something to compare it to, than the state of Rhode Island. And Sparta is smaller than the state of Connecticut. Most city-states have small population. There were not a lot of people who lived there, and most of them were created on something called an acropolis, which is this tall hill that was usually in the middle of the city. And as we learned yesterday, each city-state had an agora, which was a marketplace where they would put right in the middle of town, and that's where people who would go if they had a challenge to what was happening, they would go there and they would meet people and they would discuss and have many ideas exchanged at the agora. Anybody who was not a Greek person was considered very barbaric. As I said, each of them had their own independent identity, and they all made their own government and laws. That's the most important thing you need to remember. Let's talk about Athens. Athens granted the rights and privileges of citizenship to all. Athens is considered the city of which democracy began. All the men there were very, very highly educated, and this was a cultural mecca for the entire world. Sparta, on the other hand, emphasized war. So Athens put their focus on the mind. Sparta put their emphasis on war. They were much more poor than the other cities, and their main focus was the military. And they started to collect taxes in order to fund the military. Pericles was a very important leader during the Golden Age in Athens. When you think of Pericles, you should think he's the father of the Golden Age. He strengthened the empire. He was very successful in his quest, and he is considered one of the most important rulers that Athens ever had. One thing I want you to know about Pericles is he was a very, very sage person, which means he was very smart. And he was able to lead and be successful leading during the entire Golden Age. And the people really liked him. They liked him so much that they kept electing him over and over again because he was honest and fair, and they felt like he was fair for all people. He ruled for 32 years, and the sad thing about Pericles is the way that he died is because there was an outbreak of a disease that was going through, and he contracted that disease, and that's how he died. He really emphasized direct democracy. Now, direct democracy is completely different than a regular democracy. Direct democracy is a form of government where the citizens rule directly. The United States does not have a direct democracy because we elect representatives.